Have you ever stopped to think about the story behind the simple paintbrush in your hand? It's not just a tool. It's a time traveler, a silent witness to 5,000 years of human creativity. Today, we're embarking on an incredible journey brushed through time to uncover the fascinating evolution of this humble yet essential instrument. Our story begins not in a grand artist's studio, but in the dusty workshops of ancient Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. Imagine an artisan sitting by the Tigris or Euphrates River. Their goal? To bring life to a simple piece of clay. They didn't have the fine-tipped nylon brushes we know today. Instead, they reached for what nature provided. They'd gather bundles of animal hair, perhaps from a horse, tail, or even a wild boar's stiff whiskers, and tie them securely to a stick or a piece of reed. It sounds crude, doesn't it? But these were the world's first paintbrushes. They were simple, yes, but incredibly effective. With these primitive tools, they painted intricate geometric patterns, scenes of daily life and mythic figures onto their pottery. These weren't just decorations. They were stories, histories, and beliefs all brought to life by a bundle of hair on a stick. It was in these simple, repetitive motions that the very first chapter of our brush's long history was written, stroke by stroke on the surface of wet clay. Now, let's travel across the ancient world to the land of the pharaohs, ancient Egypt. Here, art wasn't just for decoration. It was a sacred act, a way to ensure immortality. The Egyptians needed tools that were as precise and enduring as their beliefs. While they also used reeds, fraying the ends to create fibrous tips for broad strokes of color, they took brush making to a new level. The most prized brushes were made from the fine, soft hair of animals like squirrels and sables. These hairs were carefully selected, arranged, and bound to elegant handles made of wood or ivory. With these sophisticated tools, scribes and artists painted the elaborate hieroglyphs and vibrant frescoes that still mesmerize us today inside pyramids and tombs. Think about it. Every single line, every detailed depiction of a god or a pharaoh was painted with a brush that was, in itself, a work of art. The Egyptians understood that to create immortal art, you needed the perfect tool. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a completely different brush tradition was taking shape in ancient China. Here, the brush was not just a tool. It was an extension of the artist's soul, one of the four treasures of the study, alongside ink, paper, and the inkstone. The Chinese master brush makers developed techniques that are still revered today. They would use a complex blend of hairs, each chosen for a specific quality. For instance, the soft, absorbent hair of a goat would form the core of the brush, allowing it to hold a large amount of ink. This core would then be wrapped in a layer of stiffer, more resilient wolf or weasel hair, which provided a sharp, responsive tip for creating lines of varying thickness with just a subtle change in pressure. This ingenious design gave birth to the art of calligraphy and ink wash painting, art forms where the brushstroke itself is the subject. A single fluid motion of the brush could depict the strength of a mountain, the delicacy of a bamboo leaf, or the emotion in a poet's verse. The Chinese brush was more than a tool. It was a partner in a dance between the artist, the ink, and the paper. As the Roman Empire fell and Europe entered the Middle Ages, the paintbrush found a new sacred purpose, illuminating the Word of God. In the quiet, cold scriptoriums of monasteries, monks became the primary keepers of knowledge and art. These devout artisans spent their lives painstakingly copying and decorating religious manuscripts. Their brushes were delicate, almost feather-light, made from the finest hairs they could find, often from the tails of squirrels, known as minever. With these tiny, precise brushes, they applied shimmering gold leaf and vibrant pigments to create the breathtakingly intricate designs we see in illuminated manuscripts like the Book of Kells. Every swirl, every miniature portrait of a saint, every detailed border was a testament to both their faith and their incredible skill. The brush in their hands was not for personal expression, but for divine glory. It was a humble servant, used to make the sacred text as beautiful and worthy as possible in the eyes of God. Then came the Renaissance, a great awakening of art, science, and humanism in Europe. Artists were no longer just anonymous craftsmen. They were celebrated geniuses like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and these masters demanded better tools. The workshop of a Renaissance painter was like a laboratory. They experimented relentlessly, not just with pigments and oils, but with their brushes. They developed a whole arsenal of them. Large, stiff hog bristle brushes for applying thick layers of gesso to prepare their wooden panels. Broad, flat brushes for blocking in large areas of color. And of course, fine-tipped sable brushes for capturing the subtle play of light on skin or the intricate folds of fabric. This was the era when the specialized brush set was born. An artist would have dozens of brushes, each with a specific purpose, allowing for an unprecedented level of realism and detail. For the first time, the brush became a highly specialized instrument, tailor-made to meet the ambitions of artists who were pushing the boundaries of what was possible in painting. The journey of the paintbrush continued to evolve over the next few centuries. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the rise of the middle class created a new market for art. Artists like the Impressionists moved out of the studio and into the open air, capturing fleeting moments of light and life. This new style of painting, en plein air, required more portable and durable brushes. Brush making became a more industrialized craft, with companies beginning to manufacture brushes on a larger scale. The metal ferrule, that little metal band that holds the bristles to the handle, was a game changer. Patented in the 19th century, it allowed for bristles to be held more securely and shaped into new flat forms, which were perfect for the bold, visible brushstrokes favored by painters like Manet and Van Gogh. Think of the thick, textured swirls of paint in starry night that was made possible by sturdy, well-made bristle brushes held firmly by a metal ferrule. Finally, we arrive in the 20th and 21st centuries. The invention of synthetic materials like nylon and polyester revolutionized the industry once again. These new filaments offered a durable, affordable, and vegan alternative to animal hair. They were particularly well suited for the new acrylic paints that became popular in the mid-20th century. Today, the variety is staggering. You can find a brush for any medium, any technique, and any budget, from a child first watercolor set to a professional artist's custom-made Kolinsky sable brush that can cost hundreds of dollars. The brush has become more accessible, more versatile, and more specialized than ever before. So, the next time you pick up a paintbrush, take a moment to feel its weight in your hand. Remember its incredible 5,000-year history. You are holding a tool that has been shaped by Mesopotamian potters, Egyptian scribes, Chinese calligraphers, medieval monks, and Renaissance masters. You are holding a legacy of human creativity. From a simple bundle of whiskers to a high-tech synthetic filament, the paintbrush has always been more than just a tool. It's a bridge between our imagination and the world, allowing us to make our mark, tell our stories, and leave a splash of color for future generations to see. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories behind the everyday objects that shape our world. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next video. Have you ever wondered how the vibrant, detailed scenes inside ancient Egyptian tombs were brought to life? The answer lies in a surprisingly simple tool, one that became sacred in the hands of Egyptian artisans. Welcome back to Brushed Through Time, where today we journey down the Nile to uncover the secrets of the Egyptian paintbrush. Forget the fine sable and hog bristle we know today. Ancient Egyptian painters crafted their essential tools from the world around them. Imagine walking along the banks of the Nile, gathering rushes and splitting the tough, fibrous leaves of palm trees. These natural materials, when bundled and tied, became the very first paintbrushes of this great civilization. The design was ingenious in its simplicity. For broad washes of color on the vast tomb walls, painters would use larger brushes made from bundled palm fibers. Think of it like a modern-day house painting brush, but made entirely from a palm leaf. For the finer details, the delicate lines of a kohl-rimmed eye or the intricate patterns on a goddess' robe, they used finer brushes, likely made from single, carefully frayed rushes. It was a versatile toolkit, born from nature itself. But these brushes were more than just tools for applying paint. They were instruments of magic and ritual. In the Egyptian worldview, the images painted on tomb walls were not mere decorations. They were a vital part of ensuring the deceased's successful journey into the afterlife. These scenes depicted everything from the weighing of the heart, ceremony to illustrations of the deceased enjoying an eternal paradise, complete with servants, food, and family. Every stroke was imbued with meaning. The painter, or seshkud as they were known, was a highly respected craftsman. They weren't just slapping paint on a wall. They were performing a sacred duty. When a painter dipped their rush brush into a pot of black ink made from soot and water to outline a figure, they were defining a soul's eternal reality. When they filled it in with rich ochres from the desert or brilliant blues ground from minerals, they were breathing life into that reality. The pigments themselves were a testament to their resourcefulness. Red and yellow came from natural earth ochres. White was made from chalk or gypsum. Black, as mentioned, from carbon soot. But the most prized color was a vibrant hue we now call Egyptian blue. It was the world's first synthetic pigment, created by heating a mixture of sand, a copper compound, and calcium carbonate. To apply this precious color, a painter needed a brush that could hold the ground pigment and transfer it smoothly onto the plaster walls. Their simple fiber brushes were perfectly suited for the task. Let's look closer at the technique. The tomb walls were first prepared with a layer of plaster. The master painter would often sketch the initial design in red ochre, which could be easily corrected. Then the apprentices and other painters would come in to fill the outlines with color, using their various palm and rush brushes. The final, sharp outlines were often added last, using a fine rush brush and black ink. This created that distinct graphic style we immediately recognize as Egyptian art. It's a style defined as much by the tools they used as by their cultural beliefs. Think about the skill required. With a brush made from split fibers, controlling the flow of paint and achieving a consistent line would have been incredibly difficult. Yet the artisans of the Nile Valley mastered it. They learned exactly how much pressure to apply, how to load the brush with just the right amount of pigment, and how to create sweeping curves and precise angles with a tool that was, by our standards, quite crude. Their mastery transformed a bundle of plant fibers into a pen for writing stories on the walls of eternity. These tomb paintings have survived for thousands of years, their colors still remarkably vibrant. They are a direct link to the past, a visual library of ancient Egyptian beliefs, culture, and daily life. And at the heart of their creation was the humble brush. It was a storyteller, a ritual object, and a key that unlocked the door to the afterlife. It wasn't just a tool. It was a vessel of belief, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire civilization from the land of the living to the eternal fields of Arua. So the next time you see a photograph of a beautifully decorated Egyptian tomb, take a moment to appreciate the unsung hero of that masterpiece, the simple brush made from palms and rushes. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary creations come from the most humble of origins. The Egyptian paintbrush proves that it's not just about the tool itself, but about the vision, skill, and sacred purpose in the hands of the artist. Thank you for joining me on this journey into Egypt's painted tombs. In our next chapter, we'll travel to ancient Greece and Rome to see how the brush evolved in the hands of the classical masters. If you enjoyed this deep dive into art history, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode of Brushed Through Time. So, keep looking at the world with curiosity. Hello everyone, and now welcome back to our channel. Last time we explored the very first brushes used by our ancient ancestors. Today we're taking a leap forward in time and traveling across the globe to ancient China, where the humble brush was transformed into an instrument of incredible artistry and profound philosophy. Grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's dive into the third chapter of our journey, the silk stroke of China. Our story begins around 300 BC, during the late Warring States period. While other parts of the world were using reeds and quills, Chinese artisans and scholars were developing a tool of unparalleled sophistication. Imagine a bustling workshop filled with the scent of bamboo and animal hair. Craftsmen would meticulously select straight, sturdy bamboo stalks for the handle, prized for its lightness and strength. But the real magic, the heart of the brush, was in its bristles. Unlike the coarse bundles of hair used elsewhere, the Chinese created a brush head with a delicate layered structure. They would carefully sort hairs from goats, rabbits, or even wolves, each chosen for its unique properties. Softer hairs, like those from a goat, were perfect for holding a large amount of ink and creating broad, expressive strokes. Stiffer hairs, like those from a wolf, provided a sharp, responsive point, ideal for fine lines and intricate details. Often, these different types of hair were combined within a single brush head, creating a tool that was both supple and resilient, a true masterpiece of engineering. But this tool was far more than just a way to put ink on silk or paper. For Chinese calligraphers and painters, the brush became a conduit for their very essence. It was revered as one of the four treasures of the study, alongside ink, paper, and the inkstone. Holding the brush was not just a physical act. It was a mental and spiritual preparation. It was seen as an extension of the artist's arm, and more importantly, an extension of their soul. The energy or ki of the artist was believed to flow through their body, down their arm, and out through the tip of the brush, embedding their spirit directly into the artwork. This philosophy is beautifully captured in the art of calligraphy. To the untrained eye, Chinese characters might just look like complex symbols. But to a calligrapher, each stroke is a dance. The way the brush is held, the pressure applied, the speed of the movement, every single element is deliberate. A single character could convey not just its meaning, but also the artist's emotions, joy, sorrow, anger, or tranquility. A bold, powerful stroke might reflect confidence, while a light, trembling line could suggest vulnerability. Calligraphy wasn't just writing. It was a form of personal expression, a visual poetry where the brush was the poet's voice. This deep connection between the artist and the brush also profoundly influenced Chinese painting, particularly the genre of landscape painting known as shan shui, which translates to mountain water. Artists didn't aim for a photorealistic depiction of a scene. Instead, they sought to capture the spirit and rhythm of nature. Using the same calligraphic brushstrokes, they would paint majestic mountains, serene rivers, and wispy clouds. The brush allowed them to create a sense of depth and atmosphere with just a few elegant marks. The empty spaces on the scroll were just as important as the inked areas, representing the vastness of the universe and inviting the viewer to contemplate. Think about the skill required. An artist had to master the four virtues of the brush: a sharp point for precision, even bristles for uniformity, a full belly to hold ink, and resilience to spring back into shape. Mastering this tool took a lifetime of practice. Young students would spend years just practicing basic strokes, learning to control the flow of ink and the pressure of their hand until the brush truly felt like a part of them. One of the most legendary figures associated with the brush is Wang Qizhi, often called the Sage of Calligraphy, who lived during the 4th century AD. His work was so revered that emperors would go to great lengths to collect his original manuscripts. Legends say his skill was so great that his strokes seemed to have a life of their own, embodying the harmony and balance of the cosmos. His influence cemented the brush's status as the ultimate tool for the scholar-artist, a symbol of refinement, education, and cultural prestige that would endure for millennia. So, the next time you see a piece of Chinese calligraphy or a traditional landscape painting, look closer. See beyond the image and try to feel the movement of the artist's hand. Recognize that every line, every dot, was laid down with a tool born from centuries of refinement, a tool that was not just for making marks, but for channeling the human spirit onto the page. From a simple bamboo handle and a tuft of animal hair, the Chinese created an instrument that could capture the soul of both the artist and the world around them. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest tools can lead to the most profound expressions of our humanity. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to ancient China. I hope you enjoyed this look into the world of the calligrapher's brush. What do you find most fascinating about this chapter in the brush's history? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this series, please don't forget to hit that like button. subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll be traveling to medieval Europe to see how the brush evolved in the hands of monks and manuscript illuminators. Until then, stay curious. Welcome back to Brush Through Time, the 5,000-year journey of a humble tool. Today we're sailing into the brilliant blue waters of ancient Greece for Chapter 4, Greek Pigment and Bristlecraft. If you thought the brush was just a simple tool before, get ready to see how the Greeks elevated it into an instrument of artistic revolution. Last time, we explored the innovations of ancient Egypt. Now, picture this: the sun-drenched hills of Athens, the rise of philosophy, democracy, and art that would shape Western civilization forever. At the heart of this cultural explosion was a new way of seeing the world, and artists needed new tools to capture it. The Greeks weren't just building temples. They were bringing stone to life with vibrant color. This is where our story takes a fascinating turn. Greek artisans weren't just painting on flat surfaces. They were masters of polychromy, the art of painting sculpture. Imagine the magnificent Parthenon, not as the stark white marble we see today, but adorned in rich reds, blues, and golds. How did they achieve such detail on these massive three-dimensional forms? With a trusty and increasingly sophisticated brush, they faced a unique challenge. They needed a medium that could withstand the elements. Their solution was ingenious: encaustic painting. This involved mixing pigments with hot beeswax. Think of it as painting with colored, melted candles. This technique created a durable, lustrous finish that made the statues gleam. But applying hot, sticky wax required a special kind of brush, one that was sturdy, resilient, and could hold its shape. This is where boar bristles come into play. While earlier civilizations used various animal hairs, the Greeks began to standardize their brush making. The stiff yet flexible bristles of the wild boar were perfect for manipulating the thick, waxy paint. They were tough enough to handle the heat and provided the control needed for both broad applications of color and the delicate lines that defined a statue's features. Let's break down the anatomy of a typical Greek brush from this era. The handle, most often crafted from wood, was designed for a comfortable, firm grip. It was a tool meant to be an extension of the artist's hand, allowing for hours of meticulous work. The bristles were carefully selected, sorted, and bound tightly to the handle, often using sinew or cord. This wasn't just slapping some hair on a stick. It was a craft. The shape and size of the brush head varied depending on its purpose. Large, flat brushes for applying base coats, and fine, pointed ones for the intricate details of a warrior's shield or a goddess's gown. This growing demand for quality brushes meant that brush making itself slowly evolved from a simple task into a skilled trade. While not as celebrated as the sculptors or painters, the brush maker became an essential, unsung hero of the ancient Greek art world. They were the ones who understood the subtle differences in bristle texture, the balance of a handle, and how to construct a tool that would perform flawlessly. An artist was only as good as their brushes, and a reliable brush maker was a valuable ally. We see the results of their work not just on statues, but also in the stunning frescoes that decorated the walls of palaces and homes. From the legendary murals of Narcissus in Crete to the grand paintings found in Macedonian tombs, the brush was the instrument that told stories of gods, heroes, and daily life. It allowed for a new level of naturalism and expression. The way light and shadow were rendered, the subtle gradations of color in a sunset, these were all made possible by the versatility of the bristle brush. Think about the skill involved. The artist would be working on wet plaster in fresco painting, or with rapidly cooling wax in encaustic painting. There was no room for error. A brush had to respond instantly to the artist's every intention, delivering the pigment precisely where it was needed. This symbiotic relationship between artist and tool pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in art. So, the next time you see a reconstruction of a colorful Greek temple or admire a piece of ancient pottery, remember the humble brush that made it all possible. It was more than just a tool. It was a conduit for creativity, a bridge between imagination and reality. The Greeks, with their focus on logic, form, and beauty, didn't just use the brush, they refined it. standardized it, and turned its creation into a craft, laying the groundwork for millennia of artistic innovation. The boar bristle and wooden handle became the classic combination, a design so effective that its core principles are still in use today. The Greek chapter of our story shows us that even the simplest objects can have a profound impact on history. The brush didn't just paint statues. It helped color an entire civilization, leaving behind a legacy of beauty that continues to inspire us thousands of years later. The journey of our humble tool was becoming more specialized, more refined, and more essential than ever before. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to ancient Greece. What an incredible stop on our tour through time. If you enjoyed this, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. We're heading to Rome next, where the brush will help build an empire. See you then. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Brush Through Time. Today we're stepping into a world of quiet contemplation, flickering candlelight, and breathtaking artistry. We're entering the scriptoriums of medieval monasteries where the humble brush became a sacred instrument. This is the 5th chapter in our 5,000-year journey, the era of illuminated manuscripts. Imagine this: stone walls, the faint scent of old parchment and melting wax, and a profound echoing silence. In these monastic sanctuaries, a special kind of artist was at work, the monk illuminator. Their mission was not just to write the word of God, but to make it visually divine. And their most crucial tool? A brush, often crafted with incredible care from the delicate hairs of a squirrel's tail. Why squirrel hair? It was prized for its exceptional softness and its ability to hold a superfine point. This was absolutely essential for the intricate work of illumination. We're talking about tiny, detailed illustrations, elaborate capital letters entwined with vines and mythical beasts, and borders that bloomed with microscopic flowers. Every single element had to be perfect, and the squirrel hair brush gave them the control they needed to achieve that perfection. The process was painstaking and deeply spiritual. Before a single drop of paint was applied, the parchment, made from treated animal skin, was meticulously prepared. The scribe would write the main text, leaving specific gaps for the illuminator to work his magic. Then, the illuminator would sketch his design, often with a light metal point, before carefully applying gold leaf. This was a delicate process known as gilding, and it's what gives these manuscripts that heavenly, shimmering quality when they catch the light. Just imagine, centuries before electricity, these pages would have glowed like divine artifacts in the dim light of a candle. Once the gold was in place, it was time for the color. The pigments themselves were a testament to the era's resourcefulness. Blues from lapis lazuli, a semi-precious stone imported at great expense from what is now Afghanistan. Reds from ground insects or earthy minerals. Greens from malachite. Each color was ground by hand and mixed with a binder, like egg white, to create a type of paint called tempera. Now, picture the monk, leaning over his slanted desk. With his squirrel hair brush, he would apply these vibrant colors, one painstaking layer at a time. Each stroke was not just an artistic choice. It was an act of devotion. It was a prayer, a meditation, a way to connect with the divine through focused, creative work. The slow, deliberate motion of the brush across the vellum was a form of worship in itself. The illuminator wasn't just decorating a book. He was creating a sacred object, a vessel for holy words that was beautiful enough to honor their content. Think about the sheer amount of time involved. A single, lavishly illuminated Bible, like the famous Winchester Bible, could take years, even decades to complete, involving a whole team of scribes and illuminators. Every swirling initial, every golden halo, every tiny figure in a biblical scene was brought to life by the steady hand and the fine-tipped brush of a dedicated artist monk. These weren't just personal projects either. The monasteries were the intellectual and cultural centers of their time. These illuminated manuscripts were the repositories of knowledge, not just religious texts, but works on science, history, and literature. They were incredibly valuable, sometimes worth more than a house or a farm. They were commissioned by kings and popes, and they were symbols of power, piety, and wealth. And at the heart of it all was that simple tool, the brush. In this context, it was more than just a way to apply paint. It was a conduit for faith, a bridge between the material and the spiritual. It transformed a simple book into a treasure, a work of art that was meant to inspire awe and reverence in anyone who beheld it. The illuminators were often anonymous, their names lost to history, but their legacy lives on in these magnificent pages. The skills of these medieval masters set the stage for the artists of the Renaissance. The techniques of layering color, the understanding of how to create depth and detail, and the discipline of precise brushwork were all honed in the quiet scriptoriums of Europe. The brush in the hands of the monk became a tool of precision and patience, qualities that would define European art for centuries to come. So the next time you see a picture of an illuminated manuscript, look closer. Look beyond the dazzling gold and the rich colors. Think of the quiet room, the dedicated monk, and the humble squirrel-hair brush, making its mark stroke by meditative stroke on the pages of history. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest tools can be used to create the most extraordinary and enduring things. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the medieval scriptorium. It's truly fascinating how the purpose and perception of a single tool can evolve so dramatically through time. If you found this as captivating as I did, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss the next chapter in our series. We're heading into the Renaissance, where the brush will help unleash an explosion of creativity. See you next time. Hello and welcome back to Brush Through Time, where we're exploring the incredible 5,000-year journey of the humble paintbrush. Today, in Chapter 6, we step into one of the most brilliant explosions of creativity in human history, the Renaissance. Just imagine Florence, Italy, in the 15th century. The air is buzzing with new ideas, artistic rivalries, and the patronage of powerful families like the Medici. Artists are no longer just craftsmen. They're becoming celebrities, revered as geniuses. Figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo Buonarroti weren't just painting. They were dissecting human anatomy, studying light and shadow, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible on a canvas or a chapel ceiling. To achieve their revolutionary visions, they needed tools that were as sophisticated as their ideas. The old, somewhat clumsy brushes of the medieval era simply wouldn't cut it. The demand for greater precision, for the ability to capture the subtle curve of a lip or the delicate fold of a robe, drove a huge leap forward in brush technology. Enter the age of Renaissance precision. The major innovation during this period was the refinement of the brush itself. The most sought-after material for the bristles became the hair of the Siberian weasel, specifically the Kalinsky sable. Why sable? Its hairs are incredibly fine, springy, and have a unique ability to hold a very sharp point, even when loaded with paint. This allowed artists to create incredibly fine lines and delicate, almost invisible, transitions of color. Think about Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, that famous enigmatic smile is achieved through a technique called asterisk sfumato asterisk, which means soft or blurred in Italian. It involves layering thin, translucent glazes of paint to create a soft, hazy effect with no harsh outlines. This would have been impossible without brushes that could apply paint with extreme delicacy and control. The sable brush was the key that unlocked this new level of realism and emotional depth. But it wasn't just about the bristles. The way the brush was constructed also changed dramatically. Before the Renaissance, bristles were often just tied to the end of a stick, which could be unreliable. Now, a crucial component became standard: the metal ferrule. This is the small metal band that clamps the bristles tightly to the handle. Initially, these ferrules were often made from the hollow quills of bird feathers. But as the period progressed, metal workers began crafting ferrules from tin, copper, or other metals. This simple-sounding invention was a game-changer. A metal ferrule provided a much stronger, more secure hold on the bristles. It prevented them from splaying out or falling out during painting, giving the artist a consistent and reliable tool. This meant they could focus entirely on their art, trusting that their brush would respond precisely to every movement of their hand. With these new and improved brushes, artists could tackle the demanding medium of oil painting with unprecedented skill. Oil paint, which had been gaining popularity, dries much more slowly than the egg tempera used in the Middle Ages. This slow drying time allowed for extensive blending, layering and correcting mistakes. The combination of slow-drying oils and high-precision sable brushes with metal ferrules was the perfect storm for artistic innovation. Look at Michelangelo's work on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. While it's a fresco, his preliminary drawings and studies would have relied on these advanced tools. And in the oil paintings of artists like Titian or Raphael, you can see the results everywhere. The rich textures of fabrics, the glint of light in a subject's eye, the subtle gradations of skin tone, all of this was made possible by a brush that had evolved to become an extension of the artist's own mind and hand. So the next time you marvel at a Renaissance masterpiece, take a moment to appreciate not just the genius of the artist, but also the silent contribution of their tools. The sable hair, the secure metal ferrule, the perfectly balanced handle, they were the unsung heroes that helped bring these timeless works of art to life. They transformed the paintbrush from a simple tool for applying color into a precision instrument for capturing the very essence of humanity. This evolution from a humble craft tool to a high-precision instrument set the stage for centuries of artistic development to come. The principles established during the Renaissance, fine bristles, a secure ferrule, and an emphasis on control still define the high-quality artist brushes we use today. And that's where we'll leave it for this chapter. The Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth of art and culture. It was a rebirth for the paintbrush itself, elevating it to a status it had never known before. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through time. If you're enjoying this series, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to uncover in the incredible history of the paintbrush. We'll see you in the next. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving deep into the 7th chapter of our series, Brushed Through Time. We're jumping forward to the 18th century, a period of immense change, not just for society but for our humble hero, the brush. Get ready, because this is when the brush went from a bespoke artist companion to a powerhouse of industry. Before the 18th century, if you wanted a brush, it was likely a one-of-a-kind creation, painstakingly made by a specialist artisan. Think of the delicate brushes we discussed in our Renaissance episode, each one a minor masterpiece. But the dawn of the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Suddenly, the demand for brushes wasn't just coming from painters' studios. It was coming from factories, workshops, and construction sites. The world needed more brushes, faster and cheaper than ever before. This is where we see the birth of the brush-making industry. It was no longer about a single craftsman working in a dusty shop. Now, it was a process, a system, an assembly line of sorts. Specialized workshops sprang up, dedicated entirely to the mass production of brushes. This was a monumental shift. The brush was becoming democratized, accessible to everyone for a myriad of new purposes. So, how did they do it? Let's break down the process. The first step was the handle. Instead of being hand-carved, which was slow and expensive, handles were now turned on lathes. Imagine a block of wood spinning rapidly, while a skilled worker with a chisel quickly and efficiently shapes it into a uniform, smooth handle. This mechanization meant that hundreds of identical handles could be produced in the time it used to take to make just a few. Wood was the material of choice. It was plentiful, sturdy, and easy to work with. But what good is a handle without its bristles? This is where the process gets really interesting and, frankly, a little smelly. The primary source for bristles was still animal hair, mostly from hogs and boars, prized for their stiffness and durability. Large bundles of these raw bristles would arrive at the workshop, and they were not exactly ready to use. They needed to be cleaned and cleaned thoroughly. The first stage was boiling. Giant vats of water were heated, and the bristles were submerged. This process served multiple purposes. It sterilized the hairs, killing any bacteria, and it also helped to straighten them out, making them easier to work with. After a good long boil, the bristles were then subjected to a bleaching process. This wasn't just for aesthetics, to make them a uniform, lighter color. It also helped to further clean and refine the hairs, removing any remaining impurities. Once cleaned and bleached, the real skill came into play: sorting. This was a crucial hands-on job. Workers, often with years of experience, would meticulously sort the vast piles of bristles by length and, most importantly, by stiffness. This was critical because different jobs required different types of brushes. A painter applying a delicate varnish would need a brush with soft, flexible bristles that wouldn't leave streaks. On the other hand, a worker scrubbing a factory floor or applying thick tar would need a brush with tough, rigid bristles that could withstand heavy use. Think about the variety that was now possible. You could have a whole range of brushes, all produced in the same workshop, but each tailored for a specific task. There were stiff brushes for scrubbing, medium brushes for painting walls, and soft brushes for fine finishing. The brush was no longer just a tool for creating art. It was a tool of the trade, an essential piece of equipment for countless professions. The final step was assembly. The sorted bristles were carefully gathered into bundles. The ends were often dipped in a pitch or resin to hold them together, and then they were securely inserted into a pre-drilled hole in the machine-turned wooden handle. This method, known as being set in pitch, created a strong, durable bond that could stand up to the rigors of industrial work. The result was a functional, reliable, and affordable tool. This industrialization had a profound impact. Brushes became tools of progress. They were used to paint the newly built factories and homes that were springing up everywhere. They were used to clean the new machinery that powered the revolution. They were used by house painters, coach painters, shipbuilders, and cleaners. The humble brush was now an indispensable part of the fabric of daily life and commerce. It was no longer a luxury item but a common necessity. From an artist's delicate touch to the robust sweep of a factory worker, the 18th century transformed the brush into a versatile and vital instrument. It was a perfect example of how industrial innovation could take a simple, ancient tool and adapt it for the needs of a new, modern world. The age of the industrial bristle had arrived, setting the stage for even more innovations to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of our journey. It's amazing to think about how a tool we see every day has such a rich and complex history. What do you think is the most surprising part of this industrial process? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see where the brush goes next, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back to Brushed Through Time, the series where we explore the incredible 5,000-year journey of a tool we often take for granted, the brush. In our previous chapters, we've journeyed through ancient caves, Renaissance studios, and the grand halls of artistic masters, watching the brush evolve as a primary tool for human expression. We've seen it paint masterpieces, capture history, and bring imagination to life on canvas. But what happens when a tool so intrinsically linked with art steps out of the studio and into the home? Today, in Chapter 8, we're going beyond the canvas to uncover how the humble brush transformed our daily lives, becoming an indispensable part of cleaning, grooming, and even cooking. For most of its history, the brush was an artist's companion. But as civilizations grew and societies became more complex, so did our needs. The fundamental principle of the brush, a bundle of bristles attached to a handle, was too ingenious to be confined to just one purpose. People realized that what could spread paint could also sweep dust, what could apply delicate strokes could also groom hair, and what could create texture on a canvas could also apply a glaze to a feast. This was the moment the brush began its quiet infiltration into every corner of domestic life. Let's start with the most basic of household chores: cleaning. Imagine a home before the invention of the broom or the scrubbing brush. Keeping a space clean was a monumental task, often involving little more than rags, water, and sheer elbow grease. The adaptation of the brush for cleaning was a game changer. Early cleaning brushes were rudimentary, often made from bundles of twigs, straw, or stiff grasses tied together. Think of the classic witch's broomstick from folklore. That's not far from the reality of early sweeping implements. These weren't just for floors. Smaller, stiffer brushes were crafted to scrub pots and pans, dislodging stubborn food remnants that would have otherwise required hours of soaking and scraping. The brush made homes more hygienic, more orderly, and life in a small but significant way a little bit easier. It was a simple innovation, but its impact on sanitation and home management was profound. From the floor, the brush moved to our very own heads. Grooming has been a part of human culture for millennia, a way to signal status, health, and personal care. Early combs, carved from bone or wood, were used to detangle hair. But the hairbrush, as we know it, offered something more. By using bristles often made from animal hair, like boar bristles set into a handle, the hairbrush could not only detangle but also smooth the hair, distribute natural oils from the scalp to the tips, and stimulate the skin. This dual action of cleaning and styling made the hairbrush a coveted personal item. For centuries, a finely crafted hairbrush with a silver or ivory handle was a symbol of luxury and refinement, a treasured possession passed down through generations. It wasn't just about looking good. It was about feeling clean and well cared for, a daily ritual of self-respect. The brush also found its way into the kitchen, but not just for scrubbing pots. As culinary arts became more sophisticated, so did the tools. The pastry brush, a soft bristled tool, became essential for bakers and chefs. Think about applying a delicate egg wash to a pie crust for that perfect golden brown finish, or basting a roast with its own juices to keep it moist and flavorful. These tasks require a gentle, even application that fingers or a spoon just can't achieve. The brush allowed for a level of precision and finesse that elevated cooking from mere sustenance to an art form in its own right. From glazing pastries to sourcing meats, the brush became the chef's secret weapon, proving once again that its utility was limited only by our imagination. Now, let's turn to perhaps the most personal and revolutionary adaptation of the brush in domestic life, the toothbrush. For most of human history, oral hygiene was a tricky business. People used frayed twigs, called chew sticks, pieces of cloth, salt, or even their own fingers to clean their teeth. While better than nothing, these methods were often abrasive or ineffective. The ancient Egyptians used a powder made from crushed rock salt, mint, and dried iris flowers, but applying it was another story. The world needed a dedicated tool. And that tool, according to many historical records, emerged in China during the Tang Dynasty, but the first bristled toothbrush we can definitively trace appears later. It was around the year 1498, during the Ming Dynasty, that a Chinese emperor patented a device that looks strikingly familiar to us. This early toothbrush consisted of coarse hairs plucked from the back of a hog, neck chosen for their stiffness and attached to a handle made of bone or bamboo. It was a revolutionary concept, a handheld tool specifically designed to scrub the surfaces of teeth. Word of this clever invention eventually traveled from China to Europe, likely along the bustling Silk Road trade routes. However, it wasn't an immediate hit. Europeans were a bit hesitant, often finding the hog bristles too stiff and abrasive for their gums. They preferred the softer horsehair bristles, which were less effective at cleaning but more comfortable to use. For a long time, the toothbrush remained a niche item, an oddity used only by the wealthy or the particularly forward-thinking. Most people continued with their old methods. The big shift came in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. An Englishman named William Addis is often credited with mass-producing the first modern toothbrush. The story goes that while in prison around 1780, he grew dissatisfied with the standard method of cleaning teeth, which involved using a rag with salt and soot. Inspired, he saved a small animal bone from a meal, drilled small holes into it, and obtained some bristles from a guard, which he tied in tufts and glued into the holes. After his release, he founded a company to manufacture these toothbrushes, and it became a massive success. The Addis company still exists today, but the toothbrush still had one major hurdle to overcome: the bristles. Animal bristles were not ideal. They didn't dry well, making them a breeding ground for bacteria, and they often fell out. The true revolution in dental hygiene arrived in 1938 with the invention of nylon by DuPont. Nylon bristles were more hygienic, could be produced in varying textures from soft to hard, and were far more durable. With the invention of Dr. West's Miracle Tough toothbrush, the first to use nylon filaments, the modern toothbrush was born. World War II played an unexpected but crucial role in popularizing toothbrushing. American soldiers were required to brush their teeth daily as part of their hygiene regimen. When they returned home after the war, they brought this disciplined habit with them, and it slowly but surely spread throughout American society and the rest of the world. What started as an emperor's invention in 15th century China had, through centuries of iteration and a little help from modern chemistry and military discipline, become a twice-a-day ritual for billions of people around the globe. So, from a tool for creating immortal art, the brush branched out, becoming a tool for maintaining our homes, our appearance, and our health. The journey from the artist's easel to the bathroom sink is a testament to human ingenuity. It shows how a simple, effective design can be adapted to solve a multitude of everyday problems. The same core principle bristles on a handle that allowed for the creation of the Mona Lisa also prevents tooth decay, keeps our floors clean, and helps us bake the perfect pie. It's a quiet, unsung hero of our daily lives, a tool that has truly been brushed through time. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter of our journey. It's incredible to think about how many times a day we interact with a brush without giving it a second thought. Next time you pick up a toothbrush or a hairbrush, maybe you'll remember its long and fascinating history. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to uncover. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back to Brushed Through Time, our journey exploring the incredible 5,000-year history of a tool we all use every day. Today in Chapter 9, we're fast-forwarding to the mid-20th century, a period of explosive innovation that would forever change the bristles on our brushes. For millennia, the story of the brush was a story of nature. From the coarse hairs of wild boars to the soft fur of squirrels, animal bristles were the standard. They were effective, yes, but they were also inconsistent, sometimes difficult to source, and their quality could vary wildly. But as the world hurtled into the age of modern chemistry, a revolution was quietly taking place in laboratories. This was the dawn of synthetic fibers. Picture the scene. It's the 1930s and 40s. Scientists are creating materials that the world has never seen before. One of these miracle materials was nylon. Initially hailed as a replacement for silk in stockings, its potential was quickly recognized by industries far and wide. Nylon was strong, it was resilient, and it could be engineered to have specific properties. It didn't take long for brush makers to ask a crucial question: what if we could use this for bristles? The transition wasn't just a simple swap. It was a complete reinvention of the manufacturing process. Instead of sourcing, cleaning, and sorting animal hairs, factories could now produce endless spools of perfectly uniform synthetic filament. The first major application was, you guessed it, the toothbrush. The Dr. West's Miracle Tough toothbrush, introduced in 1938, was the first to feature nylon bristles. It was a game changer. These new bristles were more hygienic as they didn't absorb water like animal hair did, and they were more durable. Following nylon's success, other synthetic polymers like polyester soon joined the party. Each offered a unique set of advantages. Polyester, for example, was excellent at holding its shape even when wet, making it perfect for paintbrushes used with water-based paints. The era of the specialist synthetic bristle had begun. Brush makers could now design a bristle for a specific task, controlling its stiffness, its thickness, and its tipping. That's the shape of the bristle's end. This shift had a massive economic impact. Suddenly, high-quality brushes were no longer a luxury item. The consistency and affordability of synthetic fibers were a dream come true for mass production. Factories could now churn out millions of identical brushes at a fraction of the cost. This democratization of the brush meant that everyone, from professional painters to everyday homeowners, could access reliable and effective tools. Think about the paint rollers that transformed how we decorate our homes, the sturdy scrubbing brushes that make cleaning easier, or the fine-tipped art brushes that allow for incredible detail. Many of these rely on the properties of synthetic fibers. For artists, this meant new possibilities. They could now find brushes that held up to harsh acrylic paints and solvents without degrading. For industry, it meant brushes that could withstand chemicals and extreme temperatures in manufacturing processes. But what did this mean for the traditional craft of using animal hair? It didn't disappear overnight. In fact, a fascinating dynamic emerged. For certain applications, natural hair still reigns supreme. A high-end watercolor brush made from Kolinsky sable hair, for example, can hold a tremendous amount of water and release it with unparalleled control. A premium shaving brush made from badger hair is prized for its ability to create a rich lather and feel soft on the skin. So, instead of a replacement, what we saw was a diversification. The market split. Synthetics conquered the mass market, prized for their durability, versatility, and cost-effectiveness. Natural bristles, on the other hand, found their niche in the high-end luxury and specialized professional markets where their unique organic properties were irreplaceable. This new landscape also spurred innovation in synthetic technology. Manufacturers began to create synthetic bristles that mimic the properties of natural hair. You can now find synthetic brushes designed to replicate the water-holding capacity of squirrel hair or the stiffness of hog bristle. They achieve this through techniques like extruding fibers with hollow cores or tapering them to a fine point, just like a natural hair. It's a testament to how the old ways continue to inspire the new. The rise of synthetic fibers in the mid-20th century wasn't just a footnote in the history of the brush. It was a pivotal chapter. It reflected the broader story of the 20th century itself, a story of scientific progress, mass production, and the endless human drive to innovate and improve. From board to nylon, the humble brush had once again adapted, proving its remarkable resilience and importance in our ever-changing world. The next time you pick up a brush, take a moment to look at its bristles. You might just be holding a piece of modern chemical engineering in your hand. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of our journey. It's truly fascinating how much history is packed into such a simple object. If you enjoyed this, please give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to have you back as we continue to brush through time. See you next time. Welcome back to Brush Through Time, where we explore the incredible 5,000-year journey of a tool that has shaped human history. So far, we've seen brushes build empires, capture fleeting moments of beauty, and define entire artistic eras. But in the 20th century, the brush wasn't just for painting pretty pictures anymore. It was about to become a weapon, a megaphone, a symbol of rebellion. This is the story of how the humble brush became an icon of protest and pop culture. The mid-20th century was a time of seismic change. Post-war society was buzzing with new energy, new media, and a whole new set of rules, or, for some, a desire to break all the old ones. The pristine, academic brushwork of the past felt disconnected from this chaotic, vibrant, and often deeply unjust new world. A generation of artists rose up, looked at their brushes, and saw not just a tool for applying paint, but a tool for making a statement. They were ready to disrupt the art world and society itself. Enter Andy Warhol, the enigmatic king of pop art. To Warhol, the world wasn't a landscape to be painted. It was a supermarket aisle, a celebrity magazine, a news ticker of repeated images. He famously used screen printing to mass-produce his art, seemingly removing the artist's hand altogether. But don't be mistaken, the brush was still central to his process. He used it to slap on the vibrant, often messy blocks of color onto his silkscreens. Each imperfect smudge, each drip, was a deliberate act. His brushstrokes weren't about skill in the traditional sense. They were a commentary on mass production and celebrity culture. By using a brush in this almost mechanical, unartistic way, Warhol was questioning the very definition of what an artist was. He was using the brush to say, anything can be art and anyone can be an artist. His Campbell's soup cans and Marilyn Monroe portraits, created with these simple, declarative brush movements, turned everyday objects into icons and blurred the line between high art and commercialism forever. While Warhol was playing with the glossy surface of pop culture, another artist was using his brush to tear that surface open and expose the raw, gritty reality underneath. I'm talking about the phenomenal Jean-Michel Basquiat. Bursting onto the New York art scene from the world of street graffiti, Basquiat's style was electric, chaotic, and profoundly personal. His brush didn't glide. It slashed, scrawled, and scratched. He attacked the canvas with a ferocious energy, layering paint, words, and symbols. For Basquiat, the brush was an extension of his voice, a tool to explore his identity as a black man in America, to critique colonialism, racism, and the hypocrisy of the art world. His canvases are like a visual diary, filled with crowns, skulls, and cryptic text. His brushwork wasn't about creating a polished final product. It was about the raw, visceral act of creation itself. Each stroke was a shout, a question, a piece of his soul laid bare for the world to see. He showed that a brush could be a tool of protest, a way to reclaim history and write your own narrative, right onto the canvas. These artists and many others of their time completely redefined the role of the brush. It was no longer just about technique or tradition. It became a symbol of personal and political expression. Think about the protest signs of the civil rights movement or the anti-war demonstrations. What were they made with? Brushes and paint. The quick, bold strokes needed to write "Freedom Now" or "Make Love, Not War" carried a sense of urgency and immediacy. The brush became the tool of the people, a way to make your voice visible, to take up space, to demand change. In this context, the act of painting itself became a form of protest. The legacy of this era is all around us. The brush of protest and pop art opened the door for street art, neo-expressionism, and countless other movements that prioritize message over method. Artists like Banksy, who uses stencils, a modern evolution of the printing techniques Warhol played with, continue this tradition of using art to challenge authority and provoke thought. The idea that art should be accessible, relevant, and speak to the times we live in owes a huge debt to Warhol, Basquiat, and their contemporaries. They took the brush, this ancient and humble tool, and proved that its power wasn't just in its bristles, but in the ideas and the passion of the hand that holds it. They taught us that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply picking up a brush and leaving your mark on the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our journey. It's truly amazing to see how a simple tool can carry so much weight and meaning. What do you think is the most powerful use of a brush? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this series, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next and final chapter. We'll be looking at the brush of today and tomorrow, from digital styluses to AI-generated art. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Hello and welcome back to Brush Through Time. In our last chapter, we saw brushes revolutionize the art world. Today, we taking a journey from the artist's canvas to the scientist's lab and the surgeon's table. We're exploring how the humble brush shrank down to an almost microscopic scale to become an indispensable tool in modern medicine and science. So grab your lab coat and let's dive into the fascinating world of microbrushes. Imagine a tool so small it can navigate the delicate pathways of the human body, or so precise it can place a single drop of a chemical onto a microchip. That's the microbrush. It's a testament to human ingenuity. Taking a simple concept, bristles on a handle, and adapting it for tasks that demand ultimate precision. These aren't your household paintbrushes. They are highly specialized instruments, often designed for a single critical purpose. Let's start in the laboratory. In the world of scientific research, contamination is the enemy. A single stray particle can ruin weeks or even months of work. Early on, scientists needed a way to clean incredibly delicate and complex equipment. Think about the intricate glass tubing of a distillation apparatus or the sensitive lenses of a powerful microscope. You can't just spray them with a cleaner and wipe them down. That's where specialized lint-free and often single-use brushes came into play. They could gently sweep away debris without scratching surfaces or leaving behind fibers. This simple act of cleaning ensured the purity of experiments and the reliability of scientific data, forming the very foundation of countless breakthroughs. But cleaning was just the beginning. As technology advanced, so did the applications. Consider the field of genetics. When you see a crime drama on TV where they collect a DNA sample, what are they often using? A buccal swab, which is essentially a specialized microbrush. The sterile bristles are designed to gently scrape cells from the inside of a cheek. The material of these bristles is crucial. It has to effectively capture the cellular material without degrading the fragile DNA within. From solving crimes to tracing ancestry and diagnosing genetic disorders, this tiny brush plays a huge role in unlocking the very code of life. It's a perfect example of a simple tool, enabling a complex and powerful science. Now, let's move from the lab to the operating room. In surgery, precision is a matter of life and death. Surgeons need tools that act as a seamless extension of their hands. Enter the surgical microbrush. These tiny instruments are used for a variety of delicate tasks. In neurosurgery, for example, a microbrush might be used to gently manipulate sensitive nerve tissues or apply a hemostatic agent, a substance that stops bleeding to a very specific tiny area. The softness and flexibility of the bristles allow for a delicate touch that a hard metal instrument could never replicate. Think about ophthalmology or eye surgery. The structures of the eye are incredibly fragile. During procedures like cataract surgery or corneal transplants, surgeons use microbrushes to apply medication, clean the lens, or position delicate tissues. The precision offered by these brushes allows for minimally invasive techniques, which leads to faster recovery times and better outcomes for patients. It's amazing to think that the same basic principle behind a broom is helping to restore sight. Dentistry is another field where microbrushes have become everyday essentials. If you've ever had a sealant, a bonding agent, or even some types of fillings applied, your dentist likely used a microbrush. These tiny disposable applicators allow them to place a precise amount of material exactly where it's needed, without any mess or waste. They can apply an etching agent to a single tooth surface or paint on a thin layer of bonding resin. This level of control is essential for the longevity and success of modern dental work. It ensures a strong bond and a clean finish, all thanks to a tiny plastic stick with a few bristles on the end. The innovation doesn't stop there. In the world of diagnostics, microbrushes are critical for collecting samples from hard-to-reach places. For instance, an endocervical brush is used to gather cells from the cervix for a Pap smear, a vital screening test for cervical cancer. The design of this brush, with its soft, flexible bristles, allows for effective cell collection with minimal discomfort. Similarly, tiny brushes attached to long, flexible tubes called endoscopes can be guided deep into the lungs or digestive tract to collect tissue samples or biopsies, helping doctors diagnose conditions without the need for major surgery. Beyond medicine, microbrushes are a key component in the manufacturing of electronics. Think about the complex circuit boards inside your phone or computer. These boards have countless tiny connections that must be perfect. Microbrushes are used to apply adhesives, lubricants, or cleaning solvents to these microscopic components. Their ability to work on such a small scale without causing damage is crucial for the technology we rely on every single day. So, in a way, the brush that helps build your smartphone is a distant cousin of the one used to save a life in surgery. The materials used to make these microbrushes are just as advanced as their applications. They are no longer just animal hair and wood. We're talking about synthetic polymers like nylon and polyester, engineered to have specific properties of stiffness, absorbency, and softness. Many are designed to be sterile and single-use to completely eliminate the risk of cross-contamination, which is paramount in both medical and scientific settings. The handles, too, are ergonomically designed for precise control, often with flexible necks that can be bent to reach awkward angles. So from cleaning delicate lab equipment to collecting DNA, from performing brain surgery to building our smartphones, the microbrush is a silent hero. It represents the ultimate evolution of the brush, a simple tool refined and miniaturized to perform some of the most complex and critical tasks in the modern world. It proves that even in an age of high-tech lasers and robots, there is still a place for a simple, elegant solution. The journey of the brush shows us that sometimes the most profound innovations aren't about reinventing the wheel, but about making it smaller, smarter, and more precise than ever before. Thank you for joining us on this microscopic adventure. In our next and final chapter, we'll look to the future. What's next for the brush? From nanobots to smart materials, we'll explore the cutting edge of brush technology and speculate on what the next 5,000 years might hold for this humble yet extraordinary tool. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our grand finale. Thanks for watching and see you. In our last chapter, we saw how the brush adapted to the explosive world of modern art. Today, we're taking a giant leap, leaving the physical world of bristles and pigment behind and plugging into the digital realm. It's time for chapter 12, the virtual brush. Just think about it. For nearly 5,000 years, a brush was something you held in your hand. It had weight, a specific texture, and a connection to a physical canvas. But with the dawn of the computer age, everything was about to change. The seeds of this revolution were planted in the 1960s with Evan Sutherland's Sketchpad, one of the very first computer programs that allowed users to draw directly on a screen. It was revolutionary, but the idea of a digital brush was still a distant dream. The technology just wasn't there yet. Fast forward a couple of decades to the 1980s and 90s. Personal computers are starting to pop up in homes and studios. This is when we see the birth of paint programs like Mac Paint for the original Macintosh. It was basic, sure. You had a few simple tools like a spray can and a paintbrush that let you create pixelated art. It was a far cry from the nuanced strokes of a real brush, but it was a start. For the first time, artists could create and, more importantly, undo their work with a simple click. This undo function alone was a game changer, freeing artists from the fear of making a permanent mistake. Early digital art had a very distinct blocky look, but it opened the door to a new universe of creative possibilities. Then came the giants. In 1990, a little program called Photoshop was released. Initially, it was designed for photo retouching, but artists quickly saw its potential. The tools became more sophisticated. The brush tool wasn't just a single-sized dot anymore. You could change its shape, its hardness, its spacing. It was like having a dozen different brushes in one. However, the real magic was still missing that tactile connection. Drawing with a mouse is like trying to paint with a bar of soap. It is clumsy and lacks the finesse of the human hand. The true breakthrough came with the rise of graphics tablets and styluses. Companies like Wacom introduced devices that could track not just the position of a stylus, but also its pressure and even its tilt. Suddenly, the digital world could understand the subtle movements of an artist's hand. Press down harder, and the line gets thicker and darker. Tilt the stylus, and the stroke broadens, just like a real flat brush. This was the moment the line between analog and digital began to truly blur. When you combine a pressure-sensitive tablet with powerful software, something incredible happens. Programs like Corel Painter, and later the industry-dominant Photoshop, began to simulate the physical properties of real-world media. We're talking about software that could mimic the way watercolor bleeds into digital, paper, how oil paint blends and smudges, or the rough texture of charcoal on a canvas. The virtual brush was no longer just a tool for making marks. It was an engine for simulating reality. Artists could now create custom brushes from scratch. Want a brush that looks like scattered leaves? You can make that. Need a texture that mimics old cracked paint? You can create a brush for that too. The digital brush became infinitely customizable. An artist's digital toolbox could now contain thousands of unique brushes, each tailored to a specific need, a feat impossible and impossibly expensive in the physical world. This explosion of creative freedom allowed for styles of art that were previously unimaginable. And then came the mobile revolution. The launch of the iPad, coupled with the Apple Pencil, brought high-end digital painting to the masses. Apps like Procreate turned a lightweight tablet into a powerful, portable art studio. You could be on a bus, in a park, or at a cafe, and have an entire art supply store at your fingertips. Procreate, in particular, became a sensation for its intuitive interface and incredibly realistic brush engine. It perfectly simulated everything from brush pressure and flow to texture and blending. The feeling of sketching in Procreate is so natural that many artists now move seamlessly between their physical sketchbooks and their tablets. Today, the digital brush is an indispensable tool for countless industries. Concept artists for movies and video games use them to bring fantastical worlds to life. Illustrators create stunning book covers and editorial art. Animators use them to paint characters and backgrounds frame by frame. Even traditional painters often use digital brushes to sketch out compositions or test color palettes before ever touching a physical canvas. The virtual brush hasn't replaced the traditional one. It has become a powerful partner to it. So, where does the journey of the brush go from here? We've traveled from animal hair tied to a stick to a stream of code reacting to a stylus. In our next and final chapter, we'll look at the future. We'll explore the mind-bending possibilities of AI-generated art, virtual reality painting, and what the very concept of a brush might mean in the decades to come. It's going to be a fascinating glimpse into what's next. Thank you so much for joining me on this digital deep dive. It's incredible to see how this ancient tool has adapted and thrived in the modern world. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our grand finale. Let me know in the comments what your favorite digital art program is. Brushed Through Time, where we explore the incredible 5,000-year journey of the humble brush. In our last chapter, we delved into the Industrial Revolution's impact. Today, in Chapter 13, we're re-embarking on a vibrant global tour to uncover the fascinating cultural variations of this everyday tool. From the delicate ink strokes of Japanese artists to the intricately carved hairbrushes of Africa, the brush is so much more than just bristles and a handle. It's a mirror reflecting a culture's values, its unique aesthetics, and even its most sacred rituals. So grab your virtual passport, because we're about to see how different corners of the world shape their own remarkable brush traditions. Let's begin our journey in East Asia, a region where the brush is not merely a tool, but an extension of the artist's soul. In China, the birthplace of calligraphy, the brush, or Maobi, is revered as one of the four treasures of the study, alongside ink, paper, and the inkstone. The traditional Chinese brush is a marvel of natural engineering. Its handle could be crafted from bamboo, jade, or even porcelain, but the magic truly lies in the brush head. Typically made from animal hair like goat, weasel, or rabbit, each type of hair offers a different level of softness, absorbency, and springiness. A master calligrapher chooses their brush based on the desired effect, whether it's a bold, powerful stroke or a fine, delicate line. The construction itself is an art form, with a core of stiffer hairs surrounded by softer, more absorbent ones. This allows the brush to hold a remarkable amount of ink and release it with exquisite control, enabling the dynamic flowing lines that characterize Chinese calligraphy and ink wash painting. This isn't just about writing. It's a meditative practice, a dance of ink on paper, where every movement is filled with intention and energy. Just across the sea in Japan, this deep reverence for the brush evolved into its own distinct art form. The Japanese food is central to shado, the way of writing, and sumi-e, ink wash painting. While sharing roots with Chinese traditions, Japanese brushes often have their own nuances. Sumi-e, in particular, emphasizes minimalism and capturing the essence of a subject with the fewest possible strokes. This philosophy demands a brush that is incredibly responsive and versatile. Think of the famous image of a bamboo stalk painted in sumi-e. A single loaded brush can create the entire stalk, the joints, and the delicate leaves through subtle changes in pressure and angle. The artist becomes one with the brush, channeling their spirit or ki onto the paper. The making of these brushes, particularly those from towns like Kumano, is a protected craft. Artisans spend decades mastering the skill of selecting, cleaning and bundling hairs by hand, ensuring each foot is perfectly balanced. This dedication shows that in Japan, the brush is a key that unlocks a world of spiritual and artistic expression. Now, let's travel across the globe to the continent of Africa, where the brush takes on entirely different forms and functions, deeply embedded in personal grooming and social identity. For thousands of years, hair has held immense cultural significance across African societies, and the tools used to care for it are equally important. Instead of soft animal hairs, we find brushes and combs carved from wood, bone, or ivory. These aren't just utilitarian objects. They are works of art, often adorned with intricate geometric patterns, symbolic carvings of animals, or figures representing ancestors. In many cultures, a beautifully carved hairbrush or comb was a status symbol, a treasured personal possession, and sometimes even a courtship gift. The design could signify a person's age, marital status, or social standing. For example, the Akan people of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are renowned for their diouf, a wooden comb symbolizing beauty, cleanliness, and desirable feminine qualities. These tools were not designed for painting pictures, but for sculpting hair into elaborate styles that were themselves a form of cultural expression and storytelling. The African hairbrush is a powerful testament to how a simple tool can be imbued with personal identity and communal history. Our journey wouldn't be complete without a stop in the ancient civilizations of the Americas. Here, brushes were vital for everything from decorating pottery to creating elaborate body paint for ceremonies. Native American artisans developed brushes from a wide array of natural materials that were readily available in their environment. In the American Southwest, yucca fibers were chewed or pounded at one end to create stiff, durable brushes perfect for applying pigments to pottery. The fine lines and complex geometric patterns seen on Pueblo pottery were achieved with these simple yet effective tools. Other groups used bundles of animal hair tied to a stick, porcupine quills, or even frayed twigs. For body painting, a sacred practice in many tribes, different brushes would be used to apply clays and natural pigments. Each color and symbol held deep spiritual meaning, and the act of painting was a ritual in itself. The brushes were the conduits for this spiritual expression, connecting the individual to their community, their history, and the spirit world. The ingenuity in using local flora and fauna showcases a deep connection to the land and a resourcefulness that is truly inspiring. Returning to Europe, we see yet another evolution. While we've discussed the artistic brushes of the Renaissance, let's consider the more domestic side. Before the age of mass production, the household brush was a crucial tool for cleanliness and maintenance. Brooms or besoms were traditionally made from bundles of twigs, often birch tied to a wooden handle. These weren't just for sweeping floors. They were associated with hearth and home, and even folklore, as any story about a witch will tell you. Scrubbing brushes were made with tough plant fibers or pig bristles, essential for keeping wooden floors and stone hearths clean in a world without modern detergents. And what about personal grooming? The Victorian era, with its obsession with etiquette and appearance, saw the rise of ornate personal grooming sets. Silver-backed hairbrushes, often engraved with initials, became a staple on the dressing tables of the wealthy. These brushes, with their dense boar bristles, were believed to distribute the hair's natural oils, promoting health and shine. Here, the brush becomes a symbol of refinement, domestic order, and the social aspirations of a rapidly changing society. From the meditative strokes of a sumi-e master to the rhythmic sculpting of an African hairstyle, the brush tells 1,000 different stories. Each culture took a basic concept, a handle, and a set of fibers, and molded it to fit its unique needs, materials, and worldview. The Japanese food embodies a philosophy of minimalism and spiritual connection. The African carved comb celebrates identity and community. The Native American yucca brush showcases a deep harmony with nature, and the Victorian hairbrush reflects a concern for social presentation and domestic order. This simple tool is a powerful lens through which we can view what different societies value, whether it's artistic expression, spiritual ritual, personal identity, or social status. The story of the brush is a story of human ingenuity, creativity, and the beautiful diversity of our world. Thank you for joining us on this cultural exploration in Chapter 13 of Brush Through Time. It's truly amazing how an object we use every day without a second thought has such a rich and varied history across the globe. What cultural brush traditions do you know of? Share them in the comments below. I'd love to learn from you. In our next chapter, we'll be leaping into the 20th century to see how plastics, mass production, and modern art completely redefined the brush once again. It's going to be a fascinating ride, so make sure you don't miss it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can join us for the next part of our journey. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have you ever stopped to think about the future of something as simple as a paintbrush? It seems like a tool that has reached its peak, right? A handle, some bristles. What more could there be? Well, get ready to have your mind blown. We've journeyed through 5,000 years of brush history, from cave walls to the Renaissance masters. And now we stand at the threshold of a new era. The humble brush is about to get a major upgrade, and it's something straight out of science fiction. Imagine a brush that's more than just a tool. Imagine it as a partner in your creative process. That's not a far-off dream. It's happening right now. Welcome to the age of the smart brush. These aren't your grandfather's hog bristle brushes. We're talking about devices packed with sensors that can track every single nuance of your movement. Think about it. They can measure the precise angle you're holding the brush, the exact pressure you're applying to the canvas, and even monitor the amount of pigment being used with each stroke. Why does this matter? For an artist, this data is revolutionary. It allows for a level of consistency and precision that was previously unimaginable. You could perfectly replicate a specific brushstroke you made days ago. For students learning to paint, a smart brush could provide real-time feedback, guiding their hand to master techniques much faster. It's like having a master painter whispering instructions in your ear, correcting your form, and helping you understand the physical craft of painting on a microscopic level. It's the ultimate fusion of traditional artistry and cutting-edge technology, but the intelligence doesn't stop with the hardware. The real game changer is the integration of artificial intelligence. We're seeing the rise of AI-assisted painting tools that can work in tandem with these smart brushes. Picture this. You start a landscape, and the AI can suggest color palettes based on famous art movements. Or it can help you blend colors with a smoothness that would take years of practice to achieve manually. It's not about replacing the artist, but augmenting their abilities. The AI can handle the tedious parts, like filling in large areas with consistent color, freeing up the artist to focus on the soul of the piece, the composition, the emotion, the story. Some might argue that this takes away from the purity of art. Is it still your creation if an AI helped you? I think it's just the next step in our evolution as creators. Artists have always adopted new technologies, from the invention of the paint tube, which allowed them to leave the studio and paint en plein air, to the airbrush, which created entirely new visual styles. AI is simply the newest tool in the artist's toolkit. It's a collaborator that can push our creativity into uncharted territories, helping us to visualize and execute ideas that were previously impossible. Now let's shift gears from the digital to the physical, because the innovation isn't just happening on a microchip. There is a powerful movement to make our tools as beautiful for the planet as the art we create with them. For centuries, brushes have been made from animal hair and plastics that aren't exactly eco-friendly. The future, however, is green. Scientists and material engineers are developing incredible new biodegradable materials for both the bristles and the handles. Imagine bristles made from advanced plant-based polymers that can perfectly mimic the texture and paint-holding capacity of squirrel or sable hair, but without harming any animals. Think of handles crafted from algae-based bioplastics or sustainably harvested bamboo that, at the end of their long life, can decompose naturally, returning to the earth. This isn't just about being environmentally conscious. It's about creating a circular economy within the art world. We can create timeless beauty without leaving a permanent footprint on our planet. The art will last for generations, but the tools used to create it won't linger in a landfill. So, what does this all mean when we put it together? The future of the brush is a beautiful paradox. It is becoming both more intelligent and more natural. It's a tool that connects to the cloud while being made from the soil. On one hand, you have a smart brush that analyzes your every move and works with an AI to unlock new creative potential. On the other, you have a brush that's ethically sourced, biodegradable, and fundamentally in harmony with nature. This dual path ensures that the future of painting is accessible, powerful, and responsible. Whether you're a digital artist creating in a virtual studio or a traditional painter mixing pigments on a wooden palette, The tools of tomorrow will empower you. They will be smarter, more intuitive, and kinder to our world. The simple brush, a tool that has been with us since the dawn of civilization, isn't fading into history. Instead, it's being reimagined for a future where creativity and technology, art and sustainability are not separate ideas, but are woven together into a single beautiful stroke. The 5,000-year journey of this humble tool is far from over. In fact, it feels like it's just beginning. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration through time. If you enjoyed this journey and want to see more stories about the objects that shape our world, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We have so much more to uncover together. See you in the next video. Have you ever stopped to think about the simple tools that shape our world? We often celebrate grand inventions, but what about the humble heroes of our daily lives? Our story begins not with a finely bristled brush, but with something far more primitive. Imagine our earliest ancestors gathered in a flickering cave wanting to leave their mark. They used frayed twigs, bundles of leaves, or even their own fingers dipped in pigments made from earth and charcoal. These were the first brushes, raw, simple, yet powerful enough to create art that has survived for tens of thousands of years. They were a primal urge to communicate, to tell a story, to say, "I was here." As civilizations rose, so did the sophistication of the brush. In ancient Egypt, around 3000 BC, scribes and artists needed more precision. They crafted brushes from bundled reeds, chewing the ends to separate the fibers. These tools allowed them to write intricate hieroglyphs on papyrus and decorate the walls of majestic tombs. The brush became a key to unlocking knowledge and preserving a culture for eternity. Simultaneously, on the other side of the world, a revolution was happening in China. Legend has it that during the Qin dynasty, General Meng Tian, while overseeing the construction of the Great Wall, invented the modern brush as we know it. He supposedly bound animal hair, like rabbit, goat, or weasel, to a bamboo or wooden handle. This innovation was a game changer. The Malbi, as it's called, became one of the four treasures of the study, essential for both calligraphy and painting. It wasn't just a tool. It was an extension of the artist's soul, capable of expressing a vast range of emotions with a single, elegant stroke. The flexibility and ink-holding capacity of animal hair brushes transformed art forever. Let's fast forward to medieval Europe. Here, brushes were vital in monasteries where monks painstakingly copied and illuminated manuscripts. They used fine-tipped brushes made from squirrel or ermine hair to create tiny, detailed illustrations that made these sacred texts works of art. The brush was a conduit for devotion and patience. Then came the Renaissance, a boom time for arts and innovation. Masters like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo demanded more from their tools. Brush making became a specialized craft. Artisans experimented with different animal hairs, shapes, and sizes. Hog bristles were perfect for thick oil paints, offering texture and strength, while softer hairs were used for delicate glazes. Each brush was crafted for a specific purpose, allowing artists to achieve new levels of realism and expression. The brush was no longer just for lines and flat color. It was for sculpting light and shadow on canvas. The 18th and 19th centuries brought the Industrial Revolution, and with it, mass production. Suddenly, brushes weren't just for artists and scribes. They were for everyone and everything. Factories churned out brushes for house painting, cleaning, and personal grooming. The simple act of painting a wall or sweeping a floor was democratized. Brushes became essential tools for building and maintaining our rapidly growing cities. This era also saw the patenting of the first modern toothbrush, transforming personal hygiene and public health in ways we now take for granted. The brush had officially entered every corner of our homes. The 20th century was all about new materials. The invention of plastics and synthetic fibers like nylon changed the game once again. Nylon bristles developed in the 1930s were durable, easy to clean, and cheaper to produce than animal hair. This led to an explosion in the variety and accessibility of brushes. Think about it. Makeup brushes that blend flawlessly, dish brushes that scrub tirelessly, and specialized brushes for cleaning electronics. Synthetics made brushes more versatile, more affordable, and more specific to every imaginable task. From applying mascara to cleaning a car engine, there was a brush for the job. So where is the brush heading now? In our digital age, you might think the physical brush is becoming obsolete. But it's actually evolving in fascinating ways. Today, robotic arms equipped with highly specialized brushes perform tasks with incredible precision, from painting cars on an assembly line to cleaning delicate solar panels. In the world of art, digital styluses mimic the feel and effect of physical brushes, allowing artists to paint on a screen with the same nuance as on a canvas. Scientists are even developing nano brushes, microscopic tools that could one day perform surgeries or clean up environmental spills on a molecular level. The brush is shrinking, getting smarter, and going places we never thought possible. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey for now. From a chewed twig in a prehistoric cave to a robotic arm in a high-tech factory, the brush has been our constant companion. It has been a tool of creation in the hands of an artist, a tool of care in the hands of a parent, brushing a child's hair, a tool of knowledge for a monk, and a tool of progress for an engineer. It's a simple design, a handle and some bristles, but its impact is immeasurable. It connects us to our past, helps us build our present, and will undoubtedly help us shape our future. The story of the brush is the story of human ingenuity, creativity, and our unending desire to make our mark on the world. And that story is still being written, one stroke at a time. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. If you found this as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. What everyday object should we investigate next? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.